Good morning, everyone. It's my pleasure to introduce our guest speaker today. We have a very good one. Joseph Berninger is our guest speaker. You've left a smiling face up there for the last few minutes. There you are. I had no idea you were so young and good looking. It just shocked me. But anyway, Joe is a little bit of background on him. He was a former marketing representative for IBM. He graduated from the University of Colorado with a master's degree in religious studies. He's got a BA in history from Xavier University, and he's implemented development projects in Guatemala since 1997. As executive director, Joe is responsible for the overall management and the oversight of U.S. operations. He's also responsible for the program design, the implementation, the effectiveness, the strategic planning, the business plan, and measurable results. The Guatemala Literacy Project, better known as GLP, has been part of our club for many, many years that we've been involved. And literacy, of course, is one of the areas of focus for radio. A grassroots project, multi-club, multi-district organization, more than 600 clubs, 80 districts are involved, having been so since 1997. They have served 225,500 students through sustainable programs in the GLP. There's lots I can tell you about Joe and his brother Jeff. They're from Ohio. They're instrumental in the operation of the Guatemala Literacy Project. And it is indeed our pleasure to welcome them here today as we all try to break the cycle of poverty in Guatemala through education. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Joe Berninger.
Wow, that was some introduction. Thank you. Very well done.
Thank you.
So good to be with you all today. I'm going to share my screen. Best way to talk about our work in Guatemala is through pictures. Okay, there we go. And one more minute here. All right, there we go. The Guatemala Literacy Project. So as we were talking, so it's a great pleasure to be with you all today. And I realize that I am reminding you as a club what the project is all about, because you actually are a part of this family and have been for about the past 6 years, as was just said. Thank you for your participation in past global grants. And thank you for several of your members also participate directly by sponsoring kids in Guatemala for their education. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in a minute. This is a 25-year partnership with Rotary International. So I'm Executive Director of Cooperative for Education. We are Rotary's partner in doing the GLP, the Guatemala Literacy Project. And again, we're celebrating 25 years this year. A little bit more about me. So this was me 3 years ago, just before the pandemic, with a Cruise Canada van. I was clogging your highways, one of those annoying tourists driving up through Calgary to see Banff and Jasper National Parks. So you have a beautiful country. It was great, our time in Canada. This is my brood. I got 2 teenage boys, a little girl, my wife, and dog. And I think the original connection to your club was through this individual. So Paul, do you know who this is?
Yes, Sheila Mosley.
So a lot of you already know Sheila. So Sheila from the Windsor Roseland Club. So Sheila has been a long time veteran of this project. She's been down with us to Guatemala probably 15 times. And I believe that she made the original connection. And I want to especially thank Phyllis and Paul Charbonneau for their current sponsorship of 5 kids. So here they all are. This is the future of Guatemala. So these are kids that have that would not have a chance to go to school if it weren't for someone to sponsor them in Canada or the United States. And the RISE program, the scholarship program, bridges them, and I'll be talking about it in a minute, bridges them from grade school to the end of high school. So it's 6 additional years of education that this scholarship provides. all these girls graduate this year. The reason they're all girls is in Guatemala, you have a situation where there is, for every 3 boys in school, there are only 2 girls. So the girls are very underrepresented, and these scholarships help girls, the poorest girls in the hemisphere, get an education. So thank you, Paul and Phyllis, for making this possible. These are your girls. And I like to quote Jennifer Jones, who says, if you want to live in a better world, you have to be willing to do your part to help bring it about. So this is what it looks like to build a better world. So again, thanks to Paul and Phyllis. And not sure if you guys have received your copies yet, but we are very honored to be on the front cover of Rotary Magazine this month for this project. So this is the gift of reading. We had a really nice spread. And we have been trying to get attention in the Rotary Magazine for this project for 25 years. And we've never been successful until this year, and we got it in spades. So we're on the cover, and it's a 10-page article. So I'll quickly show it to you. We are super proud of it. And I'm showing it to you not to brag, but to congratulate, because you guys are part of this. This is a recognition of the work that you're involved with. And it certainly helps to have Jennifer Jones down in Guatemala with us to attract this attention. So the bottom picture there is, there I am with Howard in Guatemala, my associate, and then Jennifer. So this is part of my inspiration for the work that I do. This picture was taken 25 years ago, and the boy, 2 boys standing in front of me, the taller one is named Juan. I remember Juan well because we visited his school in Guatemala, in Santiago, near Lake Atitlan, to bring a Rotary-funded library. So we're going to put a library at his school. And I remember him because the kids were really shy, and after we dedicated the library, we had time to play with the kids. And he came up to our Rotary group, and he asked, "Do you know how to play Duck, Duck, Goose? Duck, Duck, Goose." And everybody, "Oh yeah, we can play Duck, Duck, Goose." So everybody, we couldn't speak the language, but we could play Duck, Duck, Goose. And a great kid. We learned after the game that even though he was one of the smartest and best kids in the class, it was going to be his last year of education. He was just in 2nd grade, but he was going to have to be pulled out because he couldn't afford to go on. We got him on a RISE scholarship through Rotary. So got him through 3rd grade, 4th grade, 5th grade, 6th grade, got him through junior high. When he got to high school, there was a challenge because in his little town in Santiago, there was no high school. He had to get on a bus and ride an hour to the next town. Finally finished high school. Here that same kid is today, almost 25 years later. So he is married, he has his own son, he is standing in front of the Bamboo Hotel, which he manages in Santiago. So just a short walk from where he grew up. He's now a literate middle-class professional, and he has broken the cycle of poverty. So why all this fuss about Guatemala? Why do we call this the Guatemala Literacy Project? Why isn't it the Mexico Literacy Project or the Honduras Literacy Project? Why Guatemala, and why only Guatemala? So Guatemala is this island of illiteracy in our hemisphere. So if you look at the statistics, all the highest numbers for illiteracy are in Guatemala, or in this part of the world, for a whole bunch of reasons that are historical, geographical, and so forth. But the other countries around Guatemala tend to do better educationally, but Guatemala has been left way behind. Part of the reason is it's a very mountainous country, a lot of isolation. There are 24 languages spoken in Guatemala. So Guatemala is the same size as the state of Ohio, and they speak 24 languages in that country, all working against literacy. So literacy, low rates of literacy and high rates of poverty typically go together. So 80% live in poverty, 1 in 3 still cannot read or write. 1 in 3, one of the highest rate in the hemisphere. Both these factors, high rates of poverty, low rates of literacy, drive migration northward. So we're looking to address this problem, and the GLP is, what I like to say is our power as Rotarians is our collective power. So if we want to make big change in the world, if we want to move mountains, our power is in working together. So this is the GLP family, as we were saying before. It's the largest multi-club, multi-district, multi-country effort in the Rotary world that is not directed by RI itself. Okay, and again, thank you for being part of this. You are one of those dots. 90 districts, 10 countries, 25 years, over 700 plus clubs now. And just a bunch of Rotarians working together over time. Here's what we've accomplished in Guatemala. So 207 self-sustaining textbook projects, 94 reading projects, 53 computer centers, 731 students on scholarship, and 57,000 students benefiting every day. So 57,000 students, if you go down there right now and you look in their backpack and they're in school, they'll have books under this program, or they'll be studying with a teacher that's been trained by this program, or they'll be in a computer lab learning technical skills through this program. 57,000 actively helped. When this program started 25 years ago, there were 2 out of every 3 people in Guatemala couldn't read. 2 out of every 3. So now 25 years later, working with others, we've gotten it down to 1 in 3. So it's still bad. We still have a long way to go. It's a 50% reduction in the rate of literacy, but it shows that big change is possible. Big change is possible. So we've been honored with several presidential visits from Rotary presidents. Anybody know who this guy is?
Chuck Roy.
Ian Risley from Australia. And Ian got up there and he said, I think this is the gold standard of Rotary projects. And of course, we couldn't write that down fast enough and put it up on Facebook.
Yeah.
a great honor. Mark Maloney came in 2019.
Oh, Stewart.
And I think you guys know who this person is, one of your neighbors.
Yeah.
There's Jennifer. So Jennifer has been down now twice for this project. I just spent a week with her in May, and she is laying the groundwork for her Imagine tour. I see the banner up there on your podium. For the Imagine Rotary Tour, where she's going to travel to a different country of the world to highlight each of Rotary's 7 areas of focus. So each trip highlights a different area of focus. And this project received the honor last year of being chosen as the focus project for basic education and literacy focus. So Jennifer's going to come down in February and try to bring some press and some attention to Rotary's work in basic education and literacy by focusing on this project. I would love it if someone from your club would come down and join us, help us welcome Jennifer. So keep in mind.
Lots of hands up here, Joe.
Okay, come on down. And it features we're going to be celebrating the 25th year of this project, and we've got 500 Rotarians who like to drink whiskey who are going to celebrate this with us. So.
More hands up now.
And finally, the project was recognized with a literacy award from the United States Library of Congress in 2020. Okay, so again, congratulations. Not to brag, more to congratulate you for being part of this. Okay, so the mission of this project is to break the cycle of poverty through education. Break that cycle of poverty. But how do we do that? Right? That's not an easy task. You don't just wave a magic wand and poverty goes away. So we've determined over the years through our own research and experience that there are 3 pathways that are very valuable to take to help get people either out of poverty or walking on that pathway out of poverty. And we focus on basic skills that we know will translate to employment. And those 3 skills are reading, computer technical skills, and graduating from high school. So first, reading. There's nothing more fundamental than that, nothing more Rotary than that. It's the foundation of all later learning. If a child doesn't learn to read, they have no future economically. Technology. 2/3 of the jobs in a place like Guatemala require significant technical skills. 2/3, but kids in rural areas have no access to those skills. And graduation. So our studies show that 12 years of education is the magic number to get out of poverty, statistically. 12 years. So if you want to get out of poverty, you need a high school diploma. You have to finish 12 years of education. The problem is, in a place like Guatemala, out of every 10 kids, guess how many finish 12 years? What would you think?
3.
2 or 3.
3? Okay, good guesses, but it's actually just 1. So only 1 in 10 will make it that far without help, without a scholarship. Okay, so the program that we have that deals with the reading part. Okay, so we have, again, 3 approaches: reading, technology, graduation. We'll talk about reading first. Okay, and that's our Spark reading program. So this is developed by a Rotarian Carolyn Johnson, who is currently the chairman of BELRAG, of the Basic Educational Literacy Rotary Action Group. Carolyn developed this approach over about 10 years of going to Guatemala 6 months and living at home 6 months. So it's a Rotary developed program. Again, it addresses the fact that even though we've made tremendous progress over 25 years, there's still a third of people, adults, that can't read. You see this kind of thing all the time in Guatemala. So what am I looking at? What are those smudges?
Fingerprints.
Okay, fingerprints, exactly. And this is not a CSI episode. This is not from a police report. This is the way that people sign documents when they can't read or write. You see it all over Guatemala. So in this case, those that could sign and the community signed. So this was a petition asking us to. We brought this school textbooks one year, and they wanted to see if they could enroll in the computer project for the next year. And this was a request from the community. Those that could sign their name signed. Those that could not, the majority, used their thumbprint, and the school principal wrote their name over their thumbprint. Universal symbol of illiteracy. Also, for the purposes of the GLP, we broaden our definition of literacy to include not only traditional literacy, but technological literacy and critical thinking. So our medicine for the problem of illiteracy is simply making sure that when kids come into school in the 1st and 2nd grade, they learn to read as quickly as possible. So the research shows that in Guatemala and in most countries where there's high illiteracy, kids often start school, but they drop out very quickly if they don't learn to read in the early grades. So it's critical to make sure that teachers know the latest methods so that they can instruct the kids properly so they learn to read by the end of 2nd grade. And we found what we call the magic literacy formula. Okay, again, this is the Rotarian created program. It involves 2 years of really robust teacher training, plus a classroom library of books, about 150 titles, and that equals twice the learning for the kids. So you put those 2 together, 2 years of teacher training, rich classroom library, twice the learning for the kids. And what happens, what we start seeing after 2 years is, first of all, teachers in Guatemala usually don't believe that a kid can learn to read in 1st grade. And any educators there in the audience?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we had a couple. Yeah.
How many of you have seen your kids, seen kids in the schools you've worked at, or your own kids or grandkids reading in 1st or 2nd grade?
Yeah. Hands up.
Hands up. Okay, great. And that's the international standard is by the end of 2nd grade, but often in the United States and in Canada, it's at the end of 1st grade. Teachers in Guatemala don't believe that that's possible until they see it, until they start putting these methods into practice and they see it in their own classrooms. So their basic methods, what you have is a whole bunch of teachers in a country. So we have about 30,000, about 150,000 teachers, about 30,000 schools. And they have a 12th grade education. So they've never been trained to use books. They didn't grow up with books, and they've had no books in their classroom all this time. So you have to show them the basics of teaching kids, taking books in classrooms and teaching kids to read. For example, if you read a book to a child, make sure that you take time to turn it around so the child can see the pictures, because it's the pictures that bring them in. There is a belief in Guatemala that if you ever get the kids out of their desks, there'll be pandemonium in the classroom. You can't have that. So we teach them to create reading circles, get the kids up close to the book again so they can see the pictures. And there are hundreds of other strategies like that that are scientifically proven and that get the kids reading better, faster, and earlier. Reader's theater is another one. The kids act out the stories that they read. Reading and writing go together. If you want kids to learn to read quickly, you get them writing as well, so that they become authors on their own. Here's one of our graduation ceremonies for teachers that have put in a lot of hard work and have gone through this program for 2 years. They get a diploma and we certify them. They only get certified when we observe in their classrooms that they've made the changes that the program requires. We have 1,000 of these teachers certified now in 15 years. And we've calculated that even if we stop today and stop with those 1,000, how many students do you think that those 1,000 will educate before they retire? So a lot of pretty young ones there.
Oh,
Bunches.
uh,
Whole lot.
Whole lot, definitely a whole lot. 2.1 million.
Oh, wow.
geez.
So 1,000 trained teachers working every day until they retire. 2.1 million students educated by those teachers, even if we stop today.
Hmm.
And the program also provides textbooks to kids in the later grades, plus training. And how do the books and materials get to the schools? That's you guys. We bring volunteers down, Rotary volunteers every year to distribute the books and help set up the programs. So when Jennifer first came down, when Sheila Mosley's been down, it's all been to help deliver books, set up these programs. Okay, so let's move on to technology. So again, it's literacy, technology, graduation. Now the technology piece. Okay, as I said before, 2 out of every 3 jobs require significant technical skills, but the kids in the rural areas don't have those skills. And it's really interesting to see them on the first day of class, because you put them down in front of a computer and they put their hand on the mouse and that mouse goes all over the screen. They don't have the fine motor skills yet to even click on a menu. 3 years later, they are teaching you things you've never seen before. It's amazing how quickly the kids learn when they get the opportunity. We find 95% of them after they graduate, after it's a 3-year program, after they graduate, will find employment or they'll continue their education to the next level. So very, very successful program. And one of the signatures of this project as well is the sustainability plan. So in order for a school to receive books or to receive computers, they have to agree to charge the kids just a little bit of money and keep that in a sustainability fund. So when I say a little bit of money, that's maybe like $1 a month. That money stays in a sustainability fund so that the school, after 5 years in the case of books or 8 years in the case of computers, can begin replacing those materials with their sustainability fund. The idea is once you initially set it up, once you initially fund it, you want it to be able to go forever. You don't want them to have to come back to Rotary in 6 years or 5 years to get more books. And all books in Guatemala are paperback. So that's about their useful life. Okay, and the third area, again, literacy, technology, and graduation. Okay, and the program that deals with graduation is the scholarship program called RISE. I love the name RISE, and we came up with it because it reminded us of a loaf of bread. So bread, you make the dough, you put in the ingredients, you add the yeast, you put it in the oven, you create the right conditions, but it rises on its own. So we're not going in and rising these kids up. We're creating the conditions and giving them the opportunity so that they themselves can rise. Remember that without help, only 1 in 10 kids make it to 12th grade. Only 1 in 10. So this, I call it the cliff. So kids will get to the end of grade school in Guatemala, which is the 6th grade. And that's a very typical level where parents will say, okay, that's enough education. We can't afford to send you on anymore. We're pulling you out of school. So they get to 12th grade, they get to 6th grade and they're stuck. But where we need to get them is 12th grade. So remember I said before, that's the magic number they need to get out of poverty. So RISE is basically a bridge. Gets them from 6th grade up to 12th grade, 6 additional precious years of education. It's not just a scholarship though, because the kids actually need other things. They need life skills and teamwork skills and leadership skills to be successful. So I like to call it a robust youth development program wrapped around a traditional scholarship. Kids learn how to interview. They learn how to represent themselves well to get jobs. We invite local Rotarians to come in and do a career day for the kids. So I've had this happen to me many times before. I will go into a Guatemalan classroom and I will stand in front of the kids and I will ask them, what do you want to be when you grow up? Very common question. What do you want to be when you grow up? They'll put their hands up. 80% of the hands will be, I want to be a teacher. I want to be a teacher. And why would they all want to be teachers? Any guesses?
Role model.
Say again.
Role
Role model, exactly, role model. It's the only professional person they've ever seen is their teacher. So we'll bring in local Rotarians and have them form career panels and have them talk about the careers they have and the businesses that they own to try to give kids an idea of what they could be and what they could do if they continued their education. Because again, think of these kids, they're in rural villages, their parents are not educated, their aunts and uncles are not educated. They have a hard time envisioning what that future could look like for them. I often say that one of the biggest things that hold our kids back in Guatemala is not poverty, it's low expectations. So this helps address that and involves local Rotarians. Okay, and leadership. Leadership, teamwork, communication skills, all important for getting them out of poverty when they graduate. And RISE would not be a Rotary project if it didn't include a community service component. So the kids have to do a community service project every semester. This is one of our RISE students giving a bag of food to a man in her community that is homeless and in need of food. It's funny because we often look at these kids as being poor, but they often look at other people in their community as being poorer. So it's really interesting to see them plan their own community service work, even while they're participating in a community service project themselves. This is on Selma. So this is one of my favorite people in Guatemala, a very good friend. I just actually saw her this past May. Jennifer got a chance to sit and have lunch with her. This is her 15 years ago. So Anselma was a very shy indigenous girl in Guatemala. Like so many kids, she wanted to be a teacher. She wanted to grow up. She wanted to be educated. She got to the end of 6th grade and wanted to continue her education, but her father said, no, you're not going on. I put you in school for 6 years. I only had 3 years myself. We need you at home. No more education. Luckily, she had a teacher that was willing to advocate for her, and the teacher talked her mom and dad into letting her accept a scholarship through RISE. So her dad said, okay, that's fine. You can take the scholarship, but I want nothing to do with it. So you're on your own. So she worked hard and she got through 7th grade, 8th grade, 9th grade, 10th grade, 11th grade, 12th grade, 6 more additional years, precious years of education. While she was in there, she got a chance to learn really good technical skills in the Rotary sponsored computer center, and she greatly improved her literacy. Here she is 15 years later. Because she had the good computer skills and because she has good literacy, she got picked off by a cell phone company in Guatemala that handles international support for iPhones, and by chance, it's a Canadian company. So for Canadians that call and have trouble with their iPhones, you may well be connected to Anselma down in Guatemala. So she supports Canadian cell phones and she makes 4 times more than her mom and dad combined. So again, a huge economic payoff because they let her go to school for 6 more years. Love this picture. She was walking out of her house. I said, stop, Anselma, I got to take this picture. There she is with her mom and her grandma. So right in that one shot, 3 generations. We got grandma, completely illiterate and very poor. Mom, illiterate and poor. Anselma, solidly middle class. The mission again, breaking this generational cycle of poverty through education. Okay, and we're doing it one family at a time. Of course, the story doesn't stop here. So this is another, let's see now, 5 more years later. So Anselma herself now is married and she has 2 kids. This is Abigail, her daughter. So not only is she out of poverty, but looking ahead, her children will always be out of poverty. So statistically, the kids always make the same educational level as the parents or greater. And so her progeny now, so the next generation is being born out of poverty. I was just in Guatemala in May and again in July, and I have never held so many babies. So this project is now 25 years old, and the babies that we held on our laps when it started are now having babies. We're seeing the turn of a generation, and it's really cool to see the first generation born out of poverty. Okay, and my last slide here. So that's Bill Hagborg, district not too far from you guys. 7010, you're 6400. And so how to get involved? Lots of ways to get involved. So you guys already are involved. Thank you again for sponsoring kids through this program. We'd love to have you guys back on board for another global grant this year or next, if that would be in your budget. So think about joining us for another global grant. We'd love to have you guys on board. And of course, there are still seats for Guatemala, and I would love to have some of you come down and help us host Jennifer in February. I do expect that tour to fill up within about the next 3 or 4 weeks. So if you might be interested, definitely let me know and I can pencil you a spot. Okay, and more information, if you type Guatemala literacy in Google, you will find our website. All right, and thank you. I got some time for questions. Really appreciate it.
We've got a couple of questions here. We've got time for a couple. Carlo, do you want to come up quickly and?
Yeah, before I forget my question, that presentation was very impactful and a lot of stuff to take in and remember, so I had to write it down to make sure I didn't forget. First of all, I love the colors of everybody, all the colors of the Guatemala dresses and everything, just fabulous. But anyway, my question is, in part of these books that you say in textbooks and paperback and whatnot, wouldn't it be good with the ones that before they start reading to be able to have their books go to their house, or because they're people, or maybe you can answer that question a little more before I answer my own question, but if books go home with the kids, would it be better for them to learn how to read is what I'm wondering.
Okay, great question. For the older kids, okay, so for the junior high and high school kids, the books do go home with the kids and have for 25 years. So that was a key aspect of the project that we thought, like you mentioned, was really important, that the kids be able to take the books home to do homework. At first, the schools did not want to do that. They thought, man, if those books leave the school building, we're never going to see them again. But we were able to put controls in place so that the kids do bring them home. So that's the older kids. The younger kids, they're up until the pandemic, they had to read in the school. We did not let them, the little kids take the books home. However, the pandemic forced us to think differently and bigger. The schools were closed in Guatemala for about 1.5 years. So we had to find ways to get the books into the homes of the kids. We looked at technological solutions to that, but in a country where internet is spotty and people don't have computers at home, it turned out that a 16th century solution was the best. We mass printed really inexpensive newspaper style paperback books to send to the kids in their homes. So we printed 52,000 of them and distributed them to the kids in their homes so they could practice reading while they're not in the school building. So great question.
We have one more question, but before we wrap, I just want to make sure that I say one thing here. Joe, you were mentioning before, you were graciously thanking, and you mentioned Paul and Phyllis a couple of times there, but I just want to tell you a bit of a story. When Phyllis and I were part of the international committee years ago, when we were actually talking about literacy and considering how many girls to sponsor, there were 7 girls sort of on the table, if you will. And we were trying to determine, which one of those or how many of those 7 we could sponsor. And one of the guys in the committee, Panos, who's had to leave here, said, let's just sponsor them all. So that's how we ended up with all of the girls in the program. But the club, yeah. No, it's very much a club effort, and I think you know that, but I just wanted to, again, make that clear. John, you had one more quick question?
Very quick, where does it go after elementary school, or are there post-secondary opportunities for the kids?
Okay, yeah, great question. So there are, and so a percentage of the students when they graduate from high school, from 12th grade, will go on to do university studies. Almost no one in Guatemala goes to university and exclusively studies. No one can afford that. So what you have is people taking college classes, maybe for 10 years or 15 years to get a degree, but they're working and they're supporting themselves throughout. So the scholarship ends at that point, because typically when a student finishes high school, they can get a good enough job to fund their own education from that point forward. And we take the sponsors and we start them with a freshman, with a new student that needs to go to high school.
Joe, one thing we like to do is get a picture of our guest speaker with Phyllis and I. So here you go.
Hey, shot.
Too slow, that's one reason.
All right.
Thank you.
Marty, would you like to come up?
Thanks.
Switch the screens on. Joe, it's my pleasure to thank you on behalf of the club. You have over 25 years developed a wonderful program. You've explained it very clearly, a powerful message. I'd like to thank you for allowing us to do you do the hard work, us do the easy work, providing some money. So thank you very much for everything you do, and you made our job so much easier. Thank you, Joe.
Thank you all. Thanks for being part of this great project and part of the family. We really appreciate it. Hope to give you another report in a year. Thanks a lot.
Buy yourself a Rotary mug.
So the program for next week